Welcome to another edition of Pants Optional. It's Pop Cult HQ Zoom interview segment where we interview comic book creators who are doing things during the pandemic and get the lowdown, but from the waist up. Today, we have a special Kickstarter Spotlight edition. We're going to be talking about Nightmare Theater, a cinematic horror comic anthology that just kicked off October 20th and runs through November 19th. With me are the co-creators, as well as creators involved within the book. For one, he's a filmmaker, actor, and creator of Baby Badass at Action Lab. And he's the co-writer of the recently successful Kickstarter campaign for Rafael Garcia Henchman, David Schrader. Hey. And along with him, he's an actor, director, voice actor, co-writer of XMAS at Scout Comics, co-writer of Electric Youth at From Beyond Comics, and he's the co-founder of Fried Comics. Please welcome Clay Adams. Clay,
Thank you.
How are you guys both doing? Kickstarter is going great. Last I looked, it was around almost 83% funded already.
Yeah, it's getting there. We're close. It's been a great start.
Yeah.
Nice. Before we jump right into that, because I think this is going to be a nice build into it, I noticed that the both of you worked on the horror film Bloodline. How did you guys make that connection, and then how does that play into what you guys are doing right now with the Nightmare Theater anthology?
Clay, why don't you start with how you heard about it and how you came into that project?
Yeah, sure. So I was a baby actor. I was just out of acting school in New York and slaughtering the classics in theater for little to no pay. When I finally got a break working on the soap operas in New York. And I was on the set of As the World Turns, and one day one of the leads pulled me aside after we finished shooting, and she said, "Listen, my husband is co-directing a film out in Los Angeles, a horror film, and they're having trouble finding the lead. I think you'd be perfect." She said, "Can you put yourself on tape tonight?" And I did. I had my wife put me on tape in the production offices there, and all the suits thought that she was being attacked by a raving maniac. And we sent off the tape, and I booked the gig. So I wound up coming out to LA from New York, and I get on set and meet the woman's husband, a guy named Keith Cloris, and I also meet Mr. David Schrader, who was the co-writer and co-director, the other part of this creative brain trust behind Bloodline. And the film was a blast. It was a great, I think Dave likes to call it a like Friday the 13th meets Memento.
Right.
It's kind of a fractured memory time kind of thing. But just a lot of fun, just a great script and a great role. And I had an awesome time doing it. And it wound up being released by Lionsgate. And then I think like a little while later, I wound up doing another horror film called The Shadow Walkers, which also got released by Lionsgate. And anyway, that was my brief period in horror films, because after that I started doing animation and things like that, and then comics, where I reconnected with Dave.
Yeah, we so Keith Cloris and I co-wrote and co-directed this film. It was done by Radius 60 Studios, and it was a low-budget horror film. We shot in the woods all night, one night. There's a slasher element to it, but Clay was great because he played this like really intense guy whose brother had done this horrible murder, and then you find out all things aren't what they seem, and so it had some twists and turns. But we actually tried to do a quality film for a really low budget, and like Clay said, we touched base again in probably around 2014 because he had Fried Comics going, and I was looking to do Baby Badass maybe with Fried, and then Action Lab Danger Zone and picked it up with Jason Martin. But we talked comics for a little bit back then, and then we started seeing each other at some cons here and there, and we're writing a comic book that's still ongoing right now that we haven't finished. But we did a script called Nightmare too, which is a really fun, like set in the late 80s horror comedy, but it's more horror. And we put that in this book that we did. So it's kind of come full circle. It's Bloodline Comics as a kind of a throwback to that era, and then Nightmare is the story that we have in our anthology.
Yeah, and I noticed that Nightmare, you guys are teamed with Ishmael Canales.
Yeah.
on
Yeah,
that.
and he's great.
I know he's actually in a couple of them. He's teamed up with.
Yeah,
someone else.
we found him, and he's helped out with some coloring too. But his art was fantastic. We got really lucky how good his stuff is, and it really feels like those like 1988 slasher movies, and it's got a great look to it. Yeah, exactly.
What I love about his stuff, his work, it kind of has a little bit of a George Perez flavor to me.
Yeah, right.
So I think that's perfect for the time period that our story is set in, because it's set late 80s. And
Right.
so to kind of have that look of like that classic New Teen Titans or Wonder Woman look from that era, I think is really cool. And he
said he liked that era. Like, he loved horror films, he loved the 80s stuff. So the little details that we didn't even need to put in, that he just put in with like the wardrobe and
the styles,
hairs is, it was like fantastic. So again, we
very
did
cool to get an artist that can really feel what you're going for and be able to put it to paper. And so people know when we say Nightmare, it's actually spelled with a K. So.
Nightmare Theater is the project, and then our story Nightmare is because it's a ride that's like a shitty Ren Fair meets It's a Small World. It's these animatronic medieval characters, and there's a whole backstory to what happened on the ride and why it shut down. But that's the name of the story, and that's the name of the ride in the story.
Now, don't you guys also have another trio of terror story within this?
We do.
Yeah, that's our intro. So we have
Kyle Roberts.
So Kyle Roberts did the cover for the book, and then he also designed our host characters. So in the grand tradition of EC, Tales from the Crypt, and the Warren books, Uncle Creepy. We decided that we were going to have these hosts, and we needed to have a little intro and maybe do some origin stories for them. So Kyle designed the characters. He did our intro, and then another artist, Mick Byers, is currently drawing our origin stories. And in fact, Dave, I have art to send.
I can't wait to see it.
Send you over. It's looking fantastic.
That's the fun part.
Yeah.
Right. That we wanted the book to have like a framework, Jason. Like, we wanted a structure of, not just here's 35 horror stories that are all different. We wanted it set up like it's a film festival, and these characters that we call these terrifying tropes, like Shelley Post Stoker is a Frankensteinish Victorian hostess, and she's the only one that talks, and the other one is the welder, and he's the character actually Clay's brother in Bloodline is this, he finds a welding mask, and it's our homage to like Jason and Freddy and all that. So you always got to have a mask. And then Eerie Erin is kind of like the little girl from the Japanese horror films, or The Grudge and Ju-on and things like that. So we wanted those characters to be the host of the film festival, invite people in, and structure the book that like there's different sections. There's an opening night, there's shorts, oddities, and dead ends. So there's some shorter comics in the book too. And then you go into like late night feature creatures and things like that, and double features. So it was a cool framework to have for the book, and I think it worked out really well. And Kyle's art is fantastic. So he has these characters do interstitials in between too. So it just kind of ties the whole book together.
And I noticed that running theme of cinematic horror throughout, even though you have some variations, like in your campaign even mentions B-movie Scream Fest and the craziness from Stephen King flicks. That the occult, demon possession, all sorts of Romero's zombies.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, great, and especially a great time of year to be launching this too in October.
That was the plan, yeah.
The corner. So
that was the plan, to get it out, like to have Halloween be the midpoint, which is usually a dead zone in Kickstarters anyhow. So why not have that time to celebrate Halloween and keep it going in between during that time?
Yeah, and Dave had the great idea about doing it like the film festival. I mean, I want to give him full credit for that. That was his idea, and thinking through the theme of, horror. We knew we wanted to do horror because horror is always popular. Like, it's great that we're doing this at Halloween, but we really could have done it at any time of year because people like to be scared.
Horror does not.
Always hungry.
Never goes out of style ever.
That's right. And but he had the great idea that like, let's, because it's horror, if we do it like a film festival, if we do it as kind of maybe homage is not the right word, but sort of, a love letter to horror movies, then we do get into all of those subgenres, and that could really open it up and allow people to tell just very different types of horror stories. And that's what's so great about this anthology, is that we don't have any overlap. It's like, if you like vampires, we got a vampire story, but we don't have 10 of them. Right. If you like more realistic type horror, or you like George Romero type stuff, we got that. If you like Bride of Chucky, we got that. We really were able to cover all the bases, and that also helped us like open up to very different creators, because it's like, all right, well, somebody might not have been a perfect pick to do a specific type of horror, but now we can pull that person in, and they can do their own thing and their own type of horror that they're drawn to. And it really just makes for a very just diverse book in terms of storytelling styles and looks. I think it's really going to knock people out.
I really think so too. And like you said, you have a huge list of creators that are attached to this project, and anyone who's familiar with the indie scene for the last, say, 5 years, you're gonna probably recognize every single name of them that's included in this. And what's really nice about it, and plus, this anthology it's over 225 pages. So, I mean, this thing is big. And what you guys have really done, which has impressed me, because I've backed some anthologies over the last year or two, but I was really impressed that all these creators had a lot more pages to work with to share their story. It wasn't like, hey, I have a 2-page bit in this anthology, or, a 3-page. You can get 8-10 pages or so from some of these creators to really flesh out, to make a really fun story, and real condensed and packed in there.
Yeah, thanks for saying that, because I don't think we even realized how big it was going to be when we started, as far as like just asking people if they're interested and then getting story ideas. And that's where, if there was going to be any overlap as an editor, we had to like kind of steer it in another direction. Maybe they had 2 or 3 different ideas, but we still got lucky. If you ask good people to write something and create something and create art for it, you're going to get good stuff back. And I think as they saw other things come in, because we're part of a group too, like a private group for the creators, they're like, well, we got to up our game and like compete, and guys like David Pepos, who really hasn't done horror, he said, let me think about it. And he came up with a great idea, something that's really unique. And as you know, he does those kinds of things that where, he puts 2 things together that you wouldn't necessarily think works, and it works. And he did that for this story. And you're right, we offer it anywhere from 2 pages to 10 pages kind of. And we got a nice mix of things, a lot of like feature length stories, and that's where they go in the book, because they're like feature length, and then some shorter ones that go together. But we gave a lot of latitude to the creators to come up with like what they wanted. And a guy like David Avalone, who does the Elvira and the Betty Page books, he did this amazing story that's very personal to him. It's like, it stars his dad from World War II. He was a veteran in WW2, and it takes that with like a German fairy tale and kind of mixes it together, and it's dark and an idea that he'd always wanted to do. And he got Sylvia Califano to do the art, and she does the Star Trek for IDW. And Taylor Esposito does the letters. Like, it's a fantastic story. It looks amazing. So, you have a bunch of these in this book. You're getting a lot of bang for your buck, especially if you love horror. But these creators and artists are all fantastic.
Sure.
Yeah, and we did want a big variety of stories, like Dave said. Like, we do have some shorts, but really most of them are these feature lengths, because we didn't want to tell people, keep it brief. We wanted to give people the space to tell a great story and tell a complete story. That was another thing that I was very adamant about, that I didn't want just a bunch of previews essentially for upcoming books, right? Like, sure. And we do have a little preview section where we'll give you a sneak peek at something, but it's very clearly called out as a preview.
If you were at a theater,
if you're at a film festival, right? You'd see a preview. But what I didn't want to have happen is that like people pay, because on Kickstarter you tend to pay a premium, and this is a big book. And so I didn't want people to feel like they were getting something that was just setting up something else.
Right.
And I wanted to make sure people felt like they were getting a complete story. So that's why it made sense to have 8, 10-page stories. Some people have 6-page stories, but most of them are like 8 to 10 pages. We do have some shorts, 2 to 4 pages. And I think even one goes like 11. James Powell had a great script. When I approached him, James Powell, if you don't know, he does a fantastic book called House of Fear, which is published by Dark Horse. And it's aimed primarily at kids, as horror stories for kids. But he kicked it up a notch for us. And anyway, he sent me the script. He sent me 2 options, and I looked at them both, and I was like, this is the one that we wound up publishing. It's called Hair Today, Gone Tomorrow, and it's just so fantastic.
Yeah.
And but he sent me the script, and I read it, and it was it was going to be 11 pages, and he was like, I don't know that I can cut this down any more than I can, and I was like, nope, it's perfect. Don't touch it. Like this is it. Let's do it. It's fine.
Yeah, I don't think there was anyone that wanted to do more and we said no. Like really, we just gave them the parameters. If you can do 8, great. If it has to go to 10, great. And I think that worked for most people too, because you're also able to put a team together and do it for a budget, as opposed to doing a full length 32, 28-page book. So I see a lot of these stories as being developed later. I know quite a few of the creators would love to do something more with that afterwards, but I love the idea that this book is like the home for those, like knowing like these stories started in Nightmare Theater Volume 1, which is kind of cool.
And yeah, I think if this book is setting up anything, it's setting up a second volume, and how maybe getting some new creators wanting to be a part of it, or maybe continuations of some of these stories into the next book. Yeah, I see there's definitely a lot of potential with what you already have and what's being established here for a possible future for this franchise.
And I think that was part of why we wanted the host and the characters to play a part in it too, because then you can carry that thematically through for the next book, another book, and it becomes its own thing. Again, they have their origin stories too, which on their own are just great, but it's kind of fun that they're part of the collection.
Hey, now, I want to say this is the first collaboration for the two of you coming together, and you formed Bloodline Comics. And what can you tell us about this new venture of yours? I kind of get where the name came from, but what about the future plans people can look forward to with Bloodline Comics?
The sky's the limit. Yeah, I mean, Dave and I, because we did collaborate on Bloodline, the movie, so long ago. So I guess this kind of feels like our first official collaboration, but we have that in the rear view mirror, and then we've also we did develop Nightmare, which is our short in the story, as we were talking about before. That was originally developed as a feature, that idea. And we pared it way down for the story, again, making sure that you got a complete story that was just nice and streamlined, but would also stick with you. So we have been working together for a while, and we've kicked around some other ideas for other comics. So I think we just wanted to, we knew we liked working together. We knew that we complement each other in terms of strengths. And we knew that we wanted to do something. And we thought an anthology would be a great way to start it, bringing in all these creators, all these wonderful people that we've met over the years on the con circuit, and just putting together a really fantastic book and doing it in the horror space. It's kind of like going back to our roots, where Dave and I first met. Sure. So we knew those things going in. We have talked about some future books, and certainly doing more volumes of Nightmare Theater if the enthusiasm keeps up the way it seems to be going. We're definitely going to want to be doing another one. We're already getting people contacting us saying, "Hey, I'm sorry I'm not in this. Let's do volume 2."
Right. There is like a possible late edition that we may be able to announce in a little bit, so we'll see. Someone that had their foot in the door to do it, but like they were trying to finish up some of their other projects. But that'll be fun to add, like maybe halfway through the campaign and let people know. Like, so it may still be expanding past 225 pages. But yeah, Bloodline Comics was like, I think me and Clay had worked on a project together. We haven't finished. We're still fooling with it, called the Infinite Reflector, and it's kind of a sci-fi thing. But we had met up and hung out at a couple of the cons, and we just kind of like enjoyed hanging out again and talking comics. So it just made sense, like he says, to do an anthology where, you can get this collection of people together that if you ask, maybe they'll come and do it. And they did. And
right.
This is the kind of book I would love to get, because, it comes in a soft cover, a couple different covers, but this gorgeous hardcover too, that Orlando Arocena did. That's just this vintage movie poster. It looks like one of the Bride of Frankenstein posters or something. And
right.
there's some cool stuff involved here.
Yeah, and you got I saw some great names on there. I liked seeing Sean Gabarine attached to it. Dave Dewanch, who I love. Just phenomenal list of people involved.
Yeah, there's like Sean Gaborin, Charlie Stickney, Christy Shin,
Nicole D'Andrea.
Tony Fabro, who does 3-panel crimes, did like an extended 3-panel crimes, which is great. Richard Fairgray has this incredible story. Russell Nolte, Terry Mayo, Don Wynn, Caden Phoenix. There's just a million people on this thing.
It's an insane list of talent.
Please don't sue me for false advertising. There's not a million, but there's a lot.
35 creative teams,
35
we're saying.
teams,
35 creative teams.
It's insane for one book. And what I was also surprised with in the campaign, I've backed other anthologies before, and usually they have their standard cover, or maybe they'll also offer a Kickstarter exclusive cover. You guys have like 4 different covers that you can pick from for this. It's insane. I backed the movie poster one. It's just too vintage that I remember growing up. But yeah, it's just a crazy number of variants available for people to, I guess, kind of find what they're really what really draws them.
Right, they're all priced very close to each other, so it's almost like, pick what you want. Like Sora Sung did an amazing cover for us, and she just launched her art book, which is going crazy on Kickstarter. But she did the Box Office Death cover with Shelley Post Stoker, and then Liad Goldberg did this amazing oil painting, and it actually sold. It was our highest tier, the most evil tier, and it sold. Someone got the original oil painting for that cover. So yeah, there's only so much you can do with an anthology as far as like a bunch of little things. So we wanted to at least have some covers and, with the posters and maybe a few other surprises coming up.
I'm really excited about it. And, like you were saying, we were talking about all the different stories that are just jam-packed into this thing. It's not only that you've given all these different voices and you have all these different, I guess, like we were saying, subgenres, but you're also getting a lot of different styles of art. There's some just fanning through it. Well, I mean, I did it digitally, so but you just see the different styles being showcased and different illustrators' interpretations and their expressions in it. Just really makes for a beautifully well-rounded book.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, we definitely wanted to just have a wide variety of styles. Just like we were tackling all the different subgenres of horror, we also wanted to visually open it up and have it sort of visually match that. So like Ishmael did, his stuff is, like I said, it really evokes that George Perez late 80s kind of look. Right. But then, you've also got people like Richard Fairgray, Dave mentioned. His style is so very different, but it also it has that it has that sort of indie feel, but it's also like the coloring. It's so bright and cheerful in the coloring that it sort of lulls you into a false sense of security, and then really gets you. Right. So
like story like it's like a David Sedaris horror film. Like it's
Yeah.
it's just very dry and odd and crazy, and it's funny, but it's also very disturbing. So,
but it just really gets under your skin. It's just such an everyday kind of occurrence that like he just keeps scratching at the surface of it, you know, and going deeper and deeper and deeper until it's truly horrifying. And but you know, that kind of variety in the types of tales that we tell lent itself to a variety of visual styles, and we think that's a strength of the book. We think it's because you're going to go from story to story, and it is going to be so different and such a different experience. I think that's a huge strength of the book.
Definitely. It's beautiful. I think you guys have an amazing project on your hands, and definitely it looks like currently, oh, well, it's gone up a little bit. We're up to 239 backers.
This is like a telethon.
Jerry's kids.
It's a horror-thon. Come on, people. Nice. We can do it. We can reach that goal.
Call now. So yeah, definitely go out and check out Nightmare Theater. It's a cinematic horror and comic anthology. Anything else you guys want to make one last shout out to reach out to possibly fans of horror or of comic books that may be on the fence, that maybe just need that little extra nudge as to why they should come back to your campaign?
You're not going to find any other book like this out there. It's such an array of talent. David Pepos, David Avalone, Dave Dwanch, David Schrader, even some non-Davids. We even have some non-Davids in the book. Charlie Stickney, you got me, Kyle Roberts, Mick Byers.
Peter Marietta did this awesome story. Newton Lee Lavoie.
Crescent City Monsters.
Crescent City Monsters short that's really
which
fantastic.
Is so gorgeous. Yeah. It's all with art by Giancarlo Bernal. It's just a crap ton of great stories in one giant book. It's a monster of a book.
As Clay said, it's all killer, no filler.
That's right. That's right.
I love that. That's your catchphrase. I love it. And what's nice too, if you do need an extra little push, I know sometimes some people can be hesitant on Kickstarter campaigns because of things falling through or production holdups and stuff like that. The book is done. Is that correct? It's just waiting to get everything lined up with printers and dealing with shipping and all that stuff. Correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
All the stories are in. And yeah, it's just a matter of like getting it together and putting it out.
And if you need any help on that end, like deciding, you know, is this book going to show up in my mailbox? I funded and fulfilled 8 projects on the platform. Dave has already done 2. We are scary good at getting these books out. So rest assured, you will receive your book.
Yeah, we can't wait for people to see it.
I'm definitely excited to get my hands on a copy as well. So you guys, thank you so much for taking the time. Everyone go out to Kickstarter, check out Nightmare Theater, filled with 35 creative teams. It's a cinematic horror comic anthology now on Kickstarter running through November 19th.